What's up everyone, how are you all? Today we are back with another blazing Naruto story. What if Naruto brought Haku to Konoha, and she plotted revenge? If you enjoy then please like, share and do comments. And also check the description to original creator of this beautiful creation. When Zabuza described Haku, he said that he was stronger than him. This was a false proclamation at least in some aspects. First, Haku was not a he, Haku was in fact a she. Second, Zabuza's statement was false because Haku was weaker than him at least on a physical level. On all other matters Haku was superior to Zabuza in ninja matters. She was better at infiltration, disguise, ninjutsu, genjutsu, and other matters. She was so skilled in fact that when she was in her normal shinobi clothing she could easily pass as a boy, even to experienced shinobi like Kakashi. How Haku was able to accomplish such a feat was through talent, a keen analytical mind, and hours upon hours of hard work. She had mastered both the subtle and not so subtle differences in how the two genders moved. Something that no henge, transformation, could ever do. Giving her a build in disguise that could fool anyone who had not known her true gender before. Haku was standing at the shoreline waiting for her prey to approach. She was dressed in her feminine light pink yukata with close-toed women's sandals and light makeup on her face, so as to fool the approaching team. Only one had seen her as a girl and he had not seen her mask break when he knocked her over the edge of the bridge. This was why when Team 7 reached the end of the newly completed and christened Great Naruto Bridge, the only ones that recognized the young teen were Naruto and Sasuke only vaguely. He remembered passing her on his way to get Naruto for breakfast one morning. "Hey Naruto began. "I don't think you ever gave me your name." Haku gave a soft and extremely convincing false joyful smile to Naruto. After all, he was the reason she was not able to save Zabuza. Naruto had knocked her over the edge of the bridge and out of the fight. By the time she made it back to the bridge the fighting was over. Gato was in custody and there were too many people for her to seek revenge. So she decided to put her extraordinary infiltration skills to use. Her plan was to befriend Team 7 and then when their guard was sufficiently down, she would kill them without mercy, like I should have done from the beginning, Haku thought. "You are correct Naruto. My name is Hana and I have a request I would like to ask you." Haku's fake name was one she used on several occasions. It was a common enough name around the elemental lands so as to not throw up in red flags and close enough to her own name that she would never fail to recognize it in conversation. "Oh, and what would that be?" Kakashi asked. He was on guard the moment he saw the girl for he knew she was a kunoichi. He knew this because of a few subtleties, her calloused hands, the tiny almost transparent scars along her arms, and lastly her stance. This girl's stance was guarded but tried to look off guard. The genin of Team 7 fell for it but Kakashi being a Junin spotted this right away. "This would mean she's about Chunin level. I would like to accompany you to your village," Haku answered honestly. She truly did want to go to Konoha. Ninja like all humans are often more relaxed in a familiar setting. This would allow her to assassinate the members of Team 7 that much easier. The three genin looked surprised and Kakashi became suspicious. "And why would you do that?" Kakashi's question sounded casual and friendly but to an experienced infiltrator like Haku it was a demand for answers. It was time for the cover story that Haku had spent that last 24 hours going over in her head and perfecting so there would be no holes. "I am a Shuyu Nin, wandering ninja," Haku answered. Kakashi was still suspicious but the genins were surprised, none more so than Naruto. "I have been looking for a village to settle in for almost a year now. I had heard that Konoha was a fair and just village. But I wanted to meet a shinobi from Konoha before I sought refuge there." She looked at Naruto with another soft yet false smile. "When I met Naruto last week while he was training I made my decision to settle in Konoha if they will have me." Coming out of her surprise at the revelation this girl was a ninja, Sakura asked the question that was on the genin's minds. "Kakashi-sensei, what's a Shouyu Nin?" Kakashi's uncovered eyes stayed on Haku as he answered Sakura. "Shuyu Nins are shinobi and kunoichi that do not have a home village like Nuke Nins, missing ninja. Unlike Nuke Nins however, they have no village of origin. Many are not trusted by regular shinobi because Shouyu Nin survive by stealing jutsu from hidden villages." "This coming from the copy ninja, Kakashi?" Haku asked with a slight mocking tone. All ninjas had at least a small amount of pride in their abilities and in themselves. If Haku was too submissive, then the skill level she was portraying to Kakashi would set off his danger sense. Kakashi gave a brief nod at the jab. He was well aware of his reputation as a jutsu thief, so for him to accuse another was hypocritical. This was a question to a test that Haku answered correctly. Some have been known to try and settle in the smaller villages, but very seldom do they try for the larger villages like Konoha. Kakashi continued like he was ignoring the jab. So the question is, why do you want to come to Konoha and what can you offer? I wish to settle in Konoha because its ideals are the closest to mine. A ninja is at their strongest when fighting for someone they hold precious, Haku slightly misquoted. Naruto and Sakura nodded at that. They had heard that philosophy among other ninjas ever since they became genin. Sasuke just looked a little uncomfortable as this was counter to his personal philosophy that others would hold him back. Kakashi looked to be considering what she said. As for what I can bring, Haku paused to truly think the skills she was willing to say. She had formed a list of what she would show to others but not what she would tell Team 7. I am proficient at herbal medicines and taught myself medical training as well as having a natural wind affinity. This information actually caught Kakashi's attention. All hidden villages valued medics, and one with experience, even if self-taught, was highly sought after. The wind affinity also caught his attention. Konoha was on the lookout for ninja with a wind affinity as it was extremely rare in Fire Country. Konoha only had 2 known people with wind affinities, Sarutobi Asuma and Shiranui Genma. She's not lying about the philosophy, Kakashi thought. Which was true, as Haku truly did value that philosophy, so she did not have to risk covering that up. But she is holding back what she can do. Then again, all ninja do that. Kakashi then spared a brief glance at Naruto, who looked on with curiosity and no small amount of hope. Well, maybe not all. I should probably work on that with him. Turning his gaze back to Haku. Alright, you can come with us. But it will be up to the Hokage if you are allowed to stay. Haku gave a true smile. The first step to her revenge was complete, access to her target. With a deep bow at the waist she spoke, thank you for this opportunity. Alright, Hana-chan's coming back with us. Naruto exclaimed. Naruto had already considered her to be his friend after their first meeting. He saw something in the girl's eyes when they were talking in the woods, and now in the present that he saw in the mirror every day. An emptiness that consumed the soul, strangling it, killing it until there is nothing left but an empty shell. Naruto often saw that in Sasuke, but in Naruto's opinion Sasuke was too much a stuck-up to become truly close to. Hana, on the other hand, had a gentleness that Naruto found comforting. You don't have to worry about the Ji-san, old man, I know he'll let you stay. Well, shall we get going then? Kakashi asked. We have a long way to go before dark. The younger ninja complied and began their trek to Konoha, Naruto in the lead with Haku telling her everything he loved about his home. The 5-day journey from Wave to Konoha allowed Team 7 to form opinions about Hana, as was part of her plan. Sasuke dismissed her as a danger but became a potential source of information, be it jutsu or general knowledge, as Haku had briefly described the places she had been and some of the training she went through. With Sakura, Haku focused on being another girl of the group. Haku was much more professional than Sakura was by leaps and bounds, but knew what it was like to be a girl surrounded by boys. So Haku focused on being Sakura's girlfriend, and talked with her about various girl subjects, shinobi and civilian related. With Kakashi she was slightly guarded but answered his questions with from her self-crafted background story, omitting some things and slipping others. This led Kakashi to truly believe that she was a shounen looking for a place to settle down. With Naruto, Haku was becoming the closest, as per her plan, as she held him most responsible for failing in her duty to protect Zabuza. With Naruto she portrayed herself as a friend that he could tell her everything, a kindred soul that each was just waiting for the other to find. This worked almost too well, as Naruto started to open up to her like only 2 other people before, the Sandaime Hokage and Amino Iruka. From her end, Haku started to file information away and began to analyze each of the members of Team 7. In Kakashi she found him to obviously be the most dangerous. Behind his lazy, perverted and slightly dopey exterior there was the heart and mind of a genius shinobi with very few weaknesses. She knew that if she let up her false identity for even a moment around him, he would not hesitate to kill her. In Sasuke she found a talented yet ego-driven, overly arrogant loner that would be easy to kill once you exploit his primary weakness. That weakness was once he put you into a category he ignored all other facts that did not confirm his assessment. With Sakura she found a potentially intelligent kunoichi that lacked the drive to use the intelligence at its best. The fact that she was so obsessed with Sasuke that she pretty much ignored the rest of the world was just another flaw in her character. And finally there was Naruto. She found that under all his bluster, grandstanding and loud yells there was a lonely little boy who wanted nothing more than to prove his worth to the world. An image she knew all too well, for she felt the same way on the cold, unforgiving streets of Kiri, until Zabuza found her. On the final leg of their journey to Konoha there was a subtle shift in Naruto's character. The only two that noticed were Haku and Kakashi. Up to this point until he had been excited and carefree. Inside Konoha's borders his guard went up and his attitude became all but forced. It was like he was anticipating an attack at any moment, like a caged animal that was forced to perform in front of a live audience. The fact that the shift was all but seamless was what truly caught Haku's attention. With the right refinement Naruto could become a truly great infiltrator and spy. All he needed was to expand his acting a little and he could be as good as her. The question Haku asked herself was, why is he doing it? The answer came soon enough. The guards at the main gate were the first indication of the kind of life Naruto lived. It started when they stopped Team 7 and their guest, ID, the first guard demanded as the others placed themselves for a proper attack them. Hitaki Kakashi said, taking his ID from his vest and presenting it the guard. Along with my team Uchiha Sasuke, Haruno Sakura, and Uzumaki Naruto. The guard checked their ID and if they were under any kind of disguise. When he came upon Naruto he hesitated, like Naruto had some kind of infectious disease, and almost did not touch him. After that he came upon Haku, and she is? Her name is Hana. She's a Shoyu-nin that wishes to settle in Konoha, Kakashi answered. Understood, the guard replied. Haku expected the guards to respond to her with trepidation, once then learned who she was. What she was not expecting was they regarded Naruto with an even greater amount. This is like the people of Kiri when they would hear about a bloodline limit, Haku noted. It most likely has something to do with that terrible chakra he used back in Wave. The journey through the village was short as they took a direct path to the Hokage Tower. Along the way Haku noted the people around them. As they approached the people would put their guards up in fear, and that fear would quickly turn to hate. All of which was focused onto Naruto. They are afraid of him, Haku concluded. They would attack him if they had the chance. This is why he is so guarded. Soon enough they reached the Hokage Tower and entered. The Hokage was at the mission desk handing out and receiving the day's missions. Ah, Kakashi, it is good to see you are back safe and sound. He then looked over to Haku, and you seem to have brought a rather pretty guest. Haku, despite all her training and self-control, still blushed at the attention but quickly pushed it away. This was the hardest part, convincing the Hokage, a man with decades of experience in all manners of shinobi and the strongest person in Konoha. She was like an actress about to perform to the most scrutinizing critic in the world. Everything had to be perfect. She had to be submissive but not too submissive. She had to be friendly but still guarded. She had to answer any questions he might have in the right way with just enough truth and lies all tied together so that he would allow her to stay. This is Hana, Kakashi introduced. She's a Shoyu-nin asking for settlement in Konoha. I see, Sarutobi replied. We should discuss this in my office then, and you can give your report after that. Kakashi nodded and turned to his genins. Well team, that's it for the day. You go home and take today and tomorrow off. After that we'll get back into training. Sasuke immediately turned to leave. The less time around other people the better he felt. Or at least that was what he tried to convince himself of anyway. Sakura, seeing Sasuke leave, turned to follow. She was halfway to the door when she noticed that Naruto was not with her, bugging her. Turning around she saw Naruto watching Kakashi escort Hana out of the mission room. Naruto, are you coming? She called. Huh, Naruto turned to Sakura. Oh sorry Sakura-chan. I think I'll stay here until Hana-chan comes back. For a moment Sakura was conflicted. Hana had become a friend to her in the time they traveled and she wanted to hear the news also. On the other hand, Sasuke had just left and this was her opportunity to have some alone time with him. She decided to settle for a simple compromise. Tell me anything that happens, okay? Sure, Sakura-chan, Naruto said before heading to the Hokage's office as Sakura ran off to catch up with Sasuke. Inside the Hokage's office, Haku was afraid. Her entire purpose was on the line. If she could not convince the Hokage to let her stay, then her only purpose in life to since Zabuza would be at an end. The Hokage for his part looked at Haku with a measuring gaze. He could tell she was good. How good he did not know. He knew she afraid by the subtle shifting of her eyes. He knew she was experienced by the way she carried herself. What he did not know was if she could be trusted. Well, let us begin, the Sandame said, taking his seat behind his desk. What is your name, age, and country of origin? My name is Hana, I have no last name. My age is 14, and my country of origin is Ocean Country. All this was true. Even her country of origin, her family have moved to the land of water when she was very young, but she was born in Ocean Country. So there was no deception there. Best to honest when you can when on an infiltration mission, she thought. What are your abilities and level of strength? Sandame had to know in order to put her into the shinobi forces. I am proficient in medic training and wind-based ninjutsu. Haku repeated her the story she told Kakashi. She then decided to add a little more in order show she was willing to give a little to get a little. I also know a couple water ninjutsu as well. And I know for certain I can fight a chunin and live. So you have been to the land of water then, the Sandame said, and Haku nodded. Who trained you? This was where it was difficult as her only trainer had been Zabuza. Still, that did not mean she did not know of other ninja. Her name was Toyaaki. I do not know much about her other than what she taught me and that she was originally from Whirlpool Country. Kakashi looked at the Sandame for a moment. He had heard of Toyaaki. She had a reputation of teaching orphans that had the talent to be ninjas. The Sandame on the other hand saw that she was lying, but he suspected that she would lie about something. You're lying, he said flatly, causing Haku to flinch but only slightly. Tell me who trained you or this interview is over. Haku had to think fast. She could not lie. If she did, her life's new mission would end in failure. If she told the truth, Kakashi would most likely kill her on the spot. Thankfully Haku could improvise. I cannot tell you who. The Sandame was about to speak when she continued quickly. I promised never to reveal his identity in order to protect him. He took me in when I was young and took care of me. I promised to protect him in any way I could, and revealing his identity would put him in danger. The Sandame contemplated her answer. She's still not telling the whole truth, obviously. But she is sincere about the promise, I can tell that. I assume he is a missing nin then. Haku nodded, if somewhat reluctantly. Will not revealing his identity put Konoha at risk? No, Haku said firmly and truthfully. Zabuza was dead, and she did not think the death of one Junin and 4 genin would jeopardize an entire hidden village. For several minutes silence reigned in the room. The Sandame was weighing everything he had been told and his analysis. Kakashi was waiting for the order to either arrest Hana or let her go. Haku was sitting perfectly still while waiting the decision that would decide her fate. Looking into her eyes, Sarutobi searched for Hana's true motive. He knew that if he could determine that, then he could predict her actions. The difficult part of this was the girl in front of him was extremely guarded, her true motives hidden deep in her mind. She's as guarded as Naruto is out in the village, the Sandame thought. Then something clicked, the part of this girl that had eluded him from the time the interview began. It was something she kept hidden that no one but a person like the Sandame could see. A person with a lifetime of life and death situations, seeing countless people live and die, and the emotions that those events bring. She has lost something, or better yet, someone very close to her, and just recently. And now she is searching for meaning in her life, just like Naruto before he decided to be Hokage. I have made my decision. Haku tensed. You may remain in Konoha. For an unspecified amount of time you will be watched and put on probation. After your probation is up, you can join the shinobi force, and after an assessment of your skills your rank will be determined. Regardless of your choice, however, you will be required to submit jutsu as a sign of good faith to the village archives. This must be done within the first month of your stay, or else your probation will be revoked and you will be banished from Fire Country. Is that understood? Yes, Hokage-sama, Haku answered. An unspecified amount of time. I will have to be extra careful until my probation is up. Once it is, then I can have my revenge. Then welcome to Konoha, Hana-san, the Sandame said with a kind smile. I shall arrange housing for you as soon as I can and see about getting you temporary work. Thank you, Hokage-sama. Haku bowed deeply. When she rose, she asked, if it is possible, may I be near Naruto-san? This caused a questioning look to appear on Sarutobi's face. He is the first person I met from Konoha and I would feel more comfortable near someone I know. I think that can be arranged, the Sandame replied. For now though, you will be staying at the Lily Hotel. It is a clean place if a bit small and out of the way. Kakashi will show you there. Now I must get back to work. Thank you for your hospitality, Hokage-sama, Haku said with another deep bow. After she rose, Kakashi moved towards the door and opened it to reveal Naruto standing there leaning against wall opposite the door. Naruto, what are you doing here? I wanted to wait for Hana-chan, Naruto admitted. Is she going to be allowed to stay here? Yes, she is, Naruto, Kakashi answered, gesturing for Haku to come with him. Alright, Naruto yelled, dashing up to Haku, grabbing her hand and dragging her down the hall. Once Kakashi closed his door, Sarutobi spoke softly. I truly hope she finds what she is really looking for. Team 7's training session was just ending. This particular session included stealth and stalking training, mainly seeing how close each of the genins could get to Kakashi before he detected them. Kakashi had recently decided to up his team's stealth due to a character flaw he started to notice, namely the want to show off. Each genin had this flaw but for different reasons. Sasuke wanted to show off to prove his innate superiority over the others, especially after Naruto had defeated a person Sasuke had not. Naruto showed off simply because he wanted everyone to notice him. 12 years of being ignored by just about everyone would do that to anyone. And finally, Sakura felt the need to show off to impress Sasuke. Ironically, the more she showed off, the less Sasuke wanted to do with her, and thus making her want to show off more. The primary problem with this attitude was it would lead the genins into taking unnecessary risks in later missions, so it was best to stop such attitudes now. The results of today's training were their group stalking skills still needed work, but were improving in training. Their individual skills showed a significant improvement with Sasuke and Sakura and a marginal one with Naruto. With Sakura, her analytical mind would often come to bear and she would devise strategies that would distract Kakashi and allow her to move closer to him. The problem with this was her plans were often time-consuming and lacked flexibility. Sasuke was more straightforward, if a little too simple. He was good, there was no denying that, but he tended to use the same skill over and over again and become too predictable. Naruto, he was just too unpredictable to classify. Sometimes he would use extremely complicated plans that, while brilliant, were too complex and would backfire, or he would be too straightforward and walk right out into the open. Still, they were improving. Kakashi had even convinced Naruto to turn his jumpsuit inside out so that the dark blue inside would be out. Turns out his suit was reversible. Alright, you've all improved since the last time, Kakashi announced. You still need to work on something. Sasuke, you need to be more versatile. If you use the same strategy over and over, you can get caught in a trap or ambush. Sasuke gave a slight frown but nodded anyway. The goal for the day was for him to reach within 10 meters, but Kakashi caught him at 20 and hit him with a water balloon. The idea that the water balloon could have been an acid bomb really brought the whole exercise into focus. Sakura, you need to think of shorter plans. If you take too long, your target may not be there when you arrive. Sakura nodded. Her task was to get within 15 meters of Kakashi within a 15-minute window. She planned it out to the last second only to arrive and find Kakashi nowhere around. He came out of the tree line 5 minutes later, saying that sometimes the target could arrive or leave early or late. It was best to be flexible in her timing. Naruto, you reached your goal for today. You got with 12 meters of me and your plan was rather unique, but you still lack consistency. Being unpredictable to an enemy is a great advantage a ninja can have. However, if you are so unpredictable that even your team cannot count on you, you become a hindrance rather than helpful. Naruto grumbled for a moment but nodded. His plan of using Kage Bushin, Shadow Clone, disguised as various other ninja using henge, transformation, in the village to talk about a new book in the Icha come line distracted Kakashi long enough for Naruto to reach his goal. The problem Naruto was having was he could never get the same results with different plans more than twice in a row. His goal was to get the same results at least 3 times. Naruto would either be too impatient or jump the gun, or too cautious and not act quickly enough. He really needed to find the right balance between the two extremes. Hey sensei, when are you going to teach us something more than just stealth training? Naruto asked as he took off his jacket to turn it orange out. Not until you all reach your individual goals, Kakashi answered. This got frowns from all three genins. They were hoping to get more something dynamic when Kakashi said he was upping their training after they got back from Wave. Tell you what, if you three all reach your individual goals by the end of the week, I'll teach you how to seal equipment directly onto your bodies. That way if you lose your primary equipment you will always have backup. That perked the genin up, knowing that kind of skill would be very useful for any ninja. Well, that's it for today. Tomorrow you have the day off, but the next day we'll practice your stealth and stalking skills again. With a puff of smoke, Kakashi left. Naruto, Sasuke and Sakura started to walk out of the training area together when they met an increasingly familiar face waiting for them, Hana. When she moved into Naruto's building she started accompanying him or waiting for him during their training sessions. Her excuse was Naruto and Team 7 were the only people she knew in town. This was true, but not the entire truth. She was really there to determine their strengths and weaknesses for when her probation was finally up and she could move freely and then kill the members of Team 7. Hey Hana-chan, Naruto greeted with Sakura giving a friendly wave and Sasuke nodding just a little. Sasuke and Sakura liked having Hana around as she often kept Naruto distracted and a little quieter. How was your job? It was fine Naruto-kun, Haku answered. She started working for a kimono shop after the first couple of days in the village. One of Haku's many skills was how to detect hidden weapon on a person through different styles of clothing. This gave her an eye for different styles and what would look best on a person. I am off for the rest of the day. That's great, Naruto exclaimed. Maybe you could help me some of my stealth training? Team 7 knew that Haku was at least as good as a Chunin and knew something they did not. She had already taught them how to do a controlled slide down a wall using the tree climbing exercise. A great tool for moving silently as well as quickly. I think I can help you a little, Haku answered. She helped out Team 7 every now and then to instill a sense of trust in them, making it easy to stab them in the back later. At least that was the idea before, now she was not so sure of her reasons. The more time she spent with Team 7 the more she could relate to them on some level. Sasuke had the sense of betrayal she felt just before she killed her father when he tried to kill her. Naruto led a rather hard life, as so many people seemed to fear and hate him. And Sakura was like that unsure girl she used to be when she first started training under Zabuza. Sakura-san, Sasuke-san, would either of you like to join us? Sasuke took a moment for giving a polite, no, and then walked off. Sasuke was polite around Hana, for one simple reason. Her mannerisms reminded him of the higher-class visitors that would come to the Uchiha compound when he was a child. Even if he did not like those people he was still forced to be polite by his parents. Although, Hana was a lot more tolerable than some of those people. Maybe later, Sakura replied. She wanted to spend time with another girl, who was not interested in Sasuke, but also wanted to spend some alone time with Sasuke. The desire to be with Sasuke won out, so Sakura turned Hana's offer down. Shall we go then, Naruto-kun? Hana asked. We can discuss what happened today and see if anything needs to change or be improved. Naruto nodded and left with her. After they left, Sakura turned Sasuke. Would you like to get something to eat, Sasuke-kun? No, Sasuke's reply was short and a bit cold, but not as it could have been. Sakura took this as a good sign that Sasuke was starting to open up a little. In reality, Sasuke was just too distracted with thinking up a new strategy for the next training session. As Naruto and Haku walked through Konoha proper, she once again took notice of the hatred underlined with fear of those around them. It was a common occurrence now, but one that still confused her. Haku suspected the people's hatred came from Naruto's stranger power, but she did not know what that power could be. She had made some small inquiries about Naruto, but the only thing she could ever get out of anyone was that Naruto was somehow no good. Other than that, the people were very tight-lipped when it came to Naruto. This just made Haku look closer at the blonde, and the closer she could see a bit of herself in him. It does not matter how much alike we are, I will still kill him, for Zabuza, Haku thought. But there was less conviction in these thoughts than there was even a week ago. Hey Hana-chan, Naruto spoke up. After we're done talking about a new strategy for tomorrow, do you think, you could, I don't know, stay for dinner? Haku paused for a moment. Naruto asking her dinner was a first, and the way he asked was on the surface out of character for him. Just below the surface, Naruto's unease was understandable. He could count the number of people who stayed to eat at his apartment on one hand, and all of them were full-grown men. She would be the first female near his age that might say yes. That would explain the slight blush, Haku thought. Yes, Naruto, I would be delighted to stay. Naruto's face shone like the sun at that point, with one condition: you serve something other than ramen. A little variety in your food can only be good for you. Naruto's face dropped for a fraction of a second, but then his smile returned. He was about to reply when his special awareness alerted him that they were being watched, and not by the usual villagers. Someone out there was a ninja trying to hide his or her appearance, but for a brief moment lost their concealment. Looking around, he tried to spot the person, but his or her presences faded again and Naruto could not locate them. Is something wrong, Naruto-kun? Haku asked. She knew they were being followed. 2 Anbu assigned to watch her and a genin kunoichi around Naruto's age. Naruto apparently detected the genin when her self-concealment dropped for just a second. Naruto's special awareness is improving. Even a few days ago he would miss the slip. I thought I felt someone watching us for a second, Naruto said. It was probably one of the Anbu that are assigned to watch me until my probation is up, Haku answered. Haku lied because she knew whom the kunoichi was, as she silently observed her when Haku first detected her. Haku deduced from her observation that the kunoichi had a crush on Naruto but was just too shy to say anything. If Naruto knew about her, the kunoichi might lose whatever nerve she had to even be around Naruto, much less work up more to talk to him. Maybe I can talk to her, Haku thought. Naruto could use another friend. What Haku failed to realize at the moment was she was thinking about herself as Naruto's friend. I don't understand why Ji-san even has those guys following you, Naruto said for the 10th time since learning of Hana's escorts. I am sure he is just following the proper procedure, Naruto-kun, Haku said for the 10th time. Come, we should head home. Naruto nodded as he followed her towards their apartment complex. Down the street, Hyuga Hinata came out from behind an ally wall. Like most of her spare time, she was following Naruto, debating with herself on whether or not she should walk up to him and talk to him. And like every time before, she found herself just too shy to take that first step. Recently, that first step had become harder with Naruto's new friend, Hana. Hinata had first seen her the second day Naruto was back from his C-rank mission. Hana had walked up to Team 7's training ground and waited for Team 7 to finish. At first, Hinata thought she was one of Uchiha Sasuke's admirers trying to get close to him. This theory was shot down as soon as Naruto started talking to the new girl in an open and friendly manner. Hinata had never seen Naruto talk to anyone like that, with the exception of Iruka-sensei and the Hokage. This meant the girl was a very close friend. Hinata had run off after seeing that, not knowing if she should be happy or sad. Happy because Naruto made a real friend close to their age, or sad because that friend was not her. It took her another 3 days, mostly due to missions and training, to look in on the new girl. She found out the basic information. Her name was Hana, she was a Shuyu Nin, wandering ninja. And she arrived with Team 7 from their mission in Wave Country. This told Hinata other things. This, Hana, was a strong, confident young kunoichi that got to know Naruto and made friends with him. In other words, everything Hinata was not. Hinata was saddened at that revelation. However, she decided to persevere just like Naruto had always done. She continued watching and following Naruto, giving him her support if only silently. She also took to watching Hana whenever she was with Naruto, which was a lot. Hinata hoped that she might learn a thing or two from watching Hana, and maybe boost her skill and thus her confidence. This new routine brought her to now. She had just watched Naruto and Hana talk about Naruto's training and what Hana might be able to help him with. Then the shock came when Naruto asked Hana to eat at his place. The shock caused Hinata to temporarily drop her concealment technique, a method of softening one's footsteps as well as blending into the background. This caused Naruto to be alerted to her presence. Quickly, Hinata ducked behind a nearby wall and resumed her technique while holding her breath. When she heard them walk away, Hinata let out her breath and sighed in both frustration and relief. Relief that she was not found, and frustration at once again hiding from Naruto. Maybe next time, Hinata thought before leaving the small alley and heading home. That evening one of the Anbu assigned to watch Haku stood before the Hokage. He was here to give the first bi-weekly report on his observations on the young woman. The Hokage, who had just finished his paperwork for the day, sat back with an audible sigh, feeling he achieved a great victory. "So tell what you've seen," Sarutobi ordered. "Hana-san appears to be a soft-spoken young kunoichi," the Anbu replied. "She seems to have adjusted well to living here. With the first 3 days she found a stable job and has moved into the low-rent apartment complex Uzumaki lives in. Her job is working at Ishida's kimonos and appears to be doing fairly well. On her off hours she usually spends time with Team 7, mostly around Uzumaki. The two seem to have become rather close friends and she has helped him and his teammates with their training. Nothing serious as to subvert Hitaki's training, but it does seem to help. We are almost certain she is aware of our presence, but she has given no direct indication, only small gestures. Stiffening slightly if we get too close, waking up just as one of us passes her window, that kind of thing. If she is able to detect us, that means her skills are above that of a chunin." The Anbu paused for a moment, then added, "I find this a bit disturbing, as Shuyu nin are weaker than village shinobi. I believe she may be a nuke nin, missing ninja, that is trying to hit out here." Team 7 walked through their training area around noon. The difference this time as opposed to the other was the genins were all wearing bathrobes and carrying matching towels and a change of clothes. The reason for this was Kakashi had told them their next training exercise would get them wet and they should dress properly. When they arrived they met Hana, wearing a light gray pair of pants and dark blue long-sleeved shirt made out of heavier material used for work clothes. This surprised the genin, as she would usually wait until after training to meet up with them. "Ah Hana, I'm glad you showed up on time," Kakashi said pleasantly, earning him a glare from all 3 genin. They had to wait for 2 hours in nothing but bathrobes with their swimsuits underneath. Those 2 hours rather embarrassing time for the 3. "I asked Hana here to help with this next stage of training. I'm not too good at training in the basics. I'm more used to training Anbu recruits, and before you ask, none of you are ready for that kind of training." The genin looked disgruntled at hearing that but did not say anything. "Anyway, Hana here has shown she can teach you the basics better than me, like when she showed you that wall sliding." "What is our next training exercise, Kakashi-sensei?" Sakura asked. "You will be learning to walk on water," Haku answered for Kakashi. "This is the second technique in learning to control and form your chakra. To properly walk on water you must learn to adjust the amount of chakra you use in an instant and maintain the proper shape so you do not fall in." "Why do we need to learn to shape our chakra?" Sasuke asked. "Learning to adjust our chakra on the fly will help in controlling our jutsu, but what will shaping our chakra do?" "Immediately nothing," Kakashi answered. "But later it will help you create your own jutsu. Learning to shape your chakra is an iattrical part of making a jutsu. But for now let's get started, shall we?" Kakashi and Haku slowly walked out to the center of the small stream they were near, then turned back to the genin. "Alright, each of you try and reach us." The genin looked at Hana and Kakashi, then looked at each other. Their faces turned slightly red as they once again realized they were in nothing but bathrobes and swimsuits. After a few seconds of silence and inaction, Naruto, being the boldest of the group, shucked off his orange bathrobe, revealing his forest green swim trunks. Unnoticed to him, Sakura's blush increased at seeing Naruto's rather well-formed body. Surprisingly, Haku also developed a blush. Next was Sasuke. He took off his blue robe, revealing his white trunks and lightly tanned skin. Sakura's blush now went from dark pink to cherry red. And finally Sakura took off her white robe, revealing a black one-piece swimsuit underneath. Naruto and surprising Sasuke stared at her for more than a few seconds before turning away with their own blazing blushes. Kakashi happily smiled at his genin's reactions to each other. He found it highly amusing to see them squirm in embarrassment and made a mental note to tease them a bit later. After his amusement left, he looked them over with an analytical eye, judging their bodies and which type of physical training would best be suited for them. Sakura's body was a bit on the delicate side for a dedicated kunoichi. She should have more of an athletic female body rather than a model kind. Kakashi suspected this was because of the typical diets most girls her age put themselves through. Still, Kakashi noticed her body was developing the proper muscle tone and he knew her eating habits were changing. After all, only a proper diet would keep a ninja in top shape. For her training, Kakashi would have her train like a dancer. This would keep her limber, but also give her the strength and stamina she needed. Plus, if he could talk to some of his old Anbu comrades, he may be able to show her some dance-based taijutsu a little later. Sasuke's body was wirier rather than muscular, not surprising considering his clan's taijutsu relied on reflexes and counter-attacking. Kakashi figured some sprinting drills and some hard stretching exercises would further his physical development. For taijutsu, Kakashi would encourage him to continue his family's style as well as teach him some of the aspects of his own. Kakashi's was more based on speed, so it would be a good supplement to the Uchiha's flexibility. Naruto's body was surprisingly in near-perfect proportion, if a bit on the short side. His musculature was a near-perfect balance of speed, strength, and stamina with only slight traces of fat, and that was more attributed to his young age. Considering Naruto's eating habit of nothing but ramen, this was surprising. It meant Naruto trained his body more than Kakashi gave him credit for. To keep up this balance, Kakashi would have to make sure Naruto kept an equal amount of weight training, stretching and running. For taijutsu, he figured Naruto should learn something similar to Osamu's, both had the same general build, and if Naruto could learn to calm down from the chain smoker, then so much the better. Kakashi ended his analysis to watch his team's first attempt at water walking, mostly to enjoy the show, as Hana would be the one to offer suggestions. The first to take a step onto the slow-moving, deep and rather cold stream was Sasuke. Like with the tree climbing back in Wave, he put too much chakra into his foot and tripped into the water. Naruto laughed his ass off at that and took his own step, only to fall right through as he did not put enough chakra into his feet. Sakura walked up to the edge of the water confident that her near-perfect control would keep her afloat. This attitude ended when she took her second step and fell into the stream just like the boys. Haku was amused at the genin's attempts. One thing all shinobi had in common was they all got wet when they first tried the water walking exercise. Pushing down her laughter, she walked up to the genin who were pouting, Sakura, frowning, Sasuke, or sulking, Naruto. Kneeling down so that she was eye level to them, she explained what they did wrong. Sasuke, you put too much chakra into your feet and blew the water away, thus making you trip. Naruto, you put too little chakra into your feet and thus you passed right through the surface. And Sakura, you forgot to adjust your chakra to the changing movement of the water and thus the surface moved out from under you. Then genin nodded and moved to the shore to try again. This time Sakura went first with the boys watching her. She took a couple of steps, then wobbled a little, found her balance again and took another step, only to fall through the water once more. They waited for Sakura to resurface to hear Hana's explanation why Sakura failed this time. When Sakura surfaced and Hana did not say anything, they knew she was waiting for them. She smiled at them, letting them know she was going to get entertainment out of all three genin. With a resigned sigh, both started to walk on the stream. Sasuke made it 3 steps before he fell in once again, and Naruto only made it 2. When all three got the bank of the stream, they waited for Hana's instruction. Instead of explaining what went wrong this time, she asked a question. What do you think went wrong this time? For a moment the genin looked thoughtful, trying to figure out where they went wrong. It was Sasuke who got the answer first. We forgot to shape our chakra. Correct, Sasuke-san, Haku said pleasantly. Now the question is, what is the proper shape needed to keep you afloat? A boat's hull, Sakura answered. The shape of a boat's hull is the most efficient shape for the displacement of the water to keep us afloat. What does the shape of a boat's hull look like? Naruto asked. Like this, Naruto, Kakashi said, making a rough shape of a boat in the dirt on the bank. Oh, Naruto said. He put his hands into a hand seal and then stepped out onto the water. After making a few adjustments to his chakra, he took another step, then another, and finally a fourth. On the 5th step he fell through. Well, looks like Naruto's got the concept down, Kakashi said happily. All he needs now is to practice. He turned to Sasuke and Sakura. Well, you two, what are you waiting for? The two blinked for a moment, then went to the water's edge and walked out. Sasuke made it 6 steps before he fell through, and Sakura made it 10 steps. Looks like you've got the concept down now. I've got some errands to run. You guys keep practicing. If you want to take a break, go ahead. I'll be back in a few hours. And remember, just because you're training doesn't mean you have to overdo it. Take a chance to relax every once in a while. With that bit of advice, Kakashi strolled off with his book in front of his face. He had to talk to some people about his students learning their taijutsu. An hour later Team 7 was taking Kakashi's advice. They were relaxing by the bank. All three had made significant progress and were able to walk to the opposite side of the stream and halfway back. It was an unspoken goal that until they could walk back and forth across the stream at least once without tripping or falling, they had not mastered water walking. For now though, they were taking a break and eating a late lunch that Hana provided. Hana had declined to join them, citing she had to return to work. I wonder when Hana-chan's probation will be up? Naruto asked out of the blue. Hard to say, Sakura replied. I mean, it's really up to Hokage-sama, but I really don't think it'll be much longer. Hana is really nice. Well, I hope it's not too much longer, Naruto said. It'd be great to go on a mission with her. I doubt we would go on mission with Hana, Sakura said. She's at least a Chunin and we wouldn't go on missions with Chunin until we become ones ourselves. Then how do we become Chunin? Naruto asked. By passing the Chunin exam, Dobi, dead last. Sasuke answered. If you had paid attention in class you would know that. Screw you, Teme. Naruto shouted, then was smacked on his head by Sakura. Don't call Sasuke that, Naruto. Sakura scolded. Rubbing his head, Naruto asked. Well, if we need to take the Chunin exam, when is it? Sakura and Sasuke looked at each other for a moment, wondering if the other knew. Since neither answered, Naruto concluded, so neither of you know, huh? Sakura shook her head no and Sasuke just looked away. Maybe we should ask Kakashi-sensei tomorrow, Sakura suggested. Her teammates had no problem with that. Well, I think we should get back to training. Naruto and Sasuke nodded and the three continued their training. As his students were training, Kakashi was wandering around the Hokage Tower. The two people he was looking for would show up here eventually. He was here to talk to Sarutobi Asuma and his old Anbu subordinate Azuki Yugo about helping with his team. Until recently, Kakashi had not taken to training his team very hard, an oversight he could admit to himself. After Wave, where a lot of mistakes were made that should not have been, Kakashi decided to train his team seriously. When he did this, he noticed the glaring weaknesses of two of his subordinates, Sakura and Naruto. Sakura had a great mind when it was not focused on Sasuke. However, was weak physically and she needed to change that. Yugo could help with that. Her dance-like fighting style would suit Sakura near perfectly. Naruto, for all his rough edges and lack of coordination, was in great physical shape and a rather devious mind. All he needed was the proper guidance and he truly would be great. Part of that guidance would be to teach him to fight correctly, and Asuma's straightforward, hard and grappling-styled taijutsu would be great for Naruto. Kakashi was already working on unleashing Naruto's unconventional yet devious mind when it came to battlefield tactics. After an hour of wondering, Kakashi found one of his targets, Yugo. Yo, Azuki, you got a minute? Hitaki? Yugo's tone sounded surprised. Yeah, I just got off duty. What do you want? Don't know if you heard, but I passed a team this year, Kakashi said. A couple of my students are in need of a little extra training. So why come to me? Yugo asked. Well, one of them, Haruno Sakura, would be good for your fighting style, Kakashi answered. Similar body frame as you had at her age, pretty limber and quick, but needs to build some stamina and get a real fighting style. So you think she would be good using my Shi Sutepu Ryu, 4 dance step style? Yugo nodded. No offense, Hitaki, but she's your student, why don't you teach her how to fight? I've learned I'm not good at teaching the basics, so I need some help on that, Kakashi admitted. And besides, you owe me for covering for you, so you could spend that weekend with Gekko a year ago. Fine, I'll teach the girl the basics of my style, Yugo grudgingly agreed. But after this we're even. Fine, fine, Kakashi said happily. Just let me know when you're available and I'll set it up. I've got a mission with my squad this week, Yugo said. I'll be back next week and have a couple of days off. We can start then. Thanks, Azuki, Kakashi said, walking off to find his second target. Kakashi found Asuma coming out of the Hokage's office. From the look on Asuma's face, the meeting between father and son was a bit strained this time. Though if the slight smirk on his face was any indication, the meeting was about Konohamaru rather than a professional issue. Hey Kakashi, what are doing here? Asuma asked his fellow Junin. Looking for you actually, Kakashi answered. Got a favor I need from you. Oh, and what would this be? Asuma asked. If it's about me putting a down payment on the latest in your book series for you while on a mission, you can forget about it. The last time I did that, Kurenai wouldn't talk to me for a week. No, this has nothing to do with that, Kakashi replied. The favor is regarding one of my students, Uzumaki Naruto. Naruto needs some help with his taijutsu, Kakashi answered. His body frame is perfect for your style. Almost perfect balance between speed, strength and stamina. Well, technically I don't have a style, Asuma said as he took out a cigarette and lit it up. I just threw together some techniques and some grapples. Anyway, I really don't have time to teach one of your students as I've got my own. Kakashi knew Asuma was just baiting him. The Junin had one of if not the laziest people in the village, Nara Shikamaru. The genin would only put enough effort into a task to get it done, and that was if he did the task to begin with. Akamichi Choji often followed his friends Led, and Yamanaka Ino was still in little girl mindset and spent most of her time doing what civilian girls would. This left Asuma plenty of free time. But as Kakashi was the one who asked, he was at the disadvantage. What do you want? Kakashi said flatly. He did not want to drag this out more than he had to. Asuma smiled like a cat that just cornered a mouse. The next time the Junins have a guys' night out, you're the one that has to ask Anko out, Asuma said. Kakashi visibly swallowed at that. It became a semi-tradition that all single male Junin had to ask Mitwashi Anko out at least once, much to the entertainment of the others. The entertainment came from how Anko responded. Either she said no with a kick to the testicles, or she said yes with wrapping the poor man up in ninja wire and dragging him off. Kakashi was one of the ones that had gotten his yes. That week still gave him wet nightmares. What else? Kakashi asked, not wanting a repeat of that week. Asuma laughed at Kakashi's nervous twitching. He knew the copy ninja would say no to that, and nothing short of another Kyuubi attack would make Kakashi ask Anko out again. Asuma just wanted to see the normally blazed Junin squirm a little. How about this, you pay for my team's next lunch meeting, Asuma suggested. His wallet could use a break from Choji. You want me to pay for a meal where an Akamichi is attending? Kakashi asked flatly. Asuma nodded, his smile still in place. Kakashi thought about the offer for a few seconds, comparing it the first offer. The choice was not hard. Deal, anything is better than dealing with Mr. Shocky. Asuma looked at Kakashi in bewilderment. One of Anko's toys, trust me, you don't want to know. Asuma quickly nodded at that. He really did not want to know. Alright, just tell me when you want to meet Naruto and I'll let him know. Have him meet me tomorrow at 8 AM. Asuma said. That's when my team meets, Kakashi objected. I know, and that will give me a good 2 hours to train him before you can have him, Asuma said with a smirk. Don't forget, Kakashi, I've known you for a long time and I know you're at least 2 hours late for everything. Kakashi just shrugged as there was no way to argue that. Fine, I'll let him know tonight that he's meeting with you tomorrow. Naruto and Haku were out doing their weekly shopping. They started shopping together about 3 weeks ago when they ran into each other at the grocery store. This was one of the few unplanned run-ins between the two. When they saw each other, each took one look at the other's basic and quickly decided to help the other shop. For in Haku's opinion, Naruto's basic contained far too much ramen, and Naruto thought just the opposite. Haku did not have nearly enough. It was a battle of wills, stubbornness, and patience, with each trying to convince the other who was right. To stranger watching them, it amusing to see. The two argued like they were siblings, Naruto being too young to form a romantic relationship. The two argued back and forth about the merits of a well-balanced diet, Haku, versus the food of the kami gods, Naruto. Haku would calmly explain the benefits of eating fruits, vegetables, and grain help improve his physicality, from making him taller to improving his eyesight, and Naruto would counter with the complex carbohydrates from ramen were perfect for a growing shinobi, as the slow burn were perfect for daily training. Haku then argued, with a trace of coldness, that eating too much ramen would build up fat and cholesterol in the blood system, making it harder for a ninja to fight at peak strength. Naruto countered by pointing out the dozen low-fat and low-cholesterol packs of ramen, saying ramen makers already had a variety for that. Haku then, with a glacier-like quality in her voice, went into what a high-salt diet would do to a person, and that ramen was full of salt. Naruto picked up another box of ramen and was about to argue the low-salt content. Haku interrupted Naruto's argument by quickly jabbing Naruto's throat at a pressure point that would keep him from talking. Haku said she would return his ability to speak if he bought more than just ramen when he shopping. Naruto held out for 3 days and would have held out longer except Sasuke mentioned that it was nice without Naruto's voice around and Naruto would never do anything to make Sasuke's time with him enjoyable. Thus Haku returned Naruto's ability to speak and won the grocery argument. Now 3 weeks later Naruto and Haku carried a well-balanced mix of food, fruits, vegetables, grains, fish and even 6 boxes of ramen. Haku and Naruto's trip back to their apartment was interrupted by a load, "Hey boss." Naruto only had a second to place his groceries on the ground before deflecting a charging Konohamaru away from him and into a nearby patch of grass. "Konohamaru, don't try and tackle me when I'm carrying my groceries," Naruto yelled. Konohamaru started attacking Naruto ever since he learned the genin was training under Asuma. The academy student got into his head that he could learn his uncle's fighting style by attacking Naruto every chance he got. One of those times was when Naruto was shopping with Hana, and caused a week's worth of food to be ruined. But, "A ninja should always attack when the target is distracted," Konohamaru quoted Iruka. "And you're distracted when you have your groceries." "He is correct Naruto-kun," Haku said smiling. Though his attack would have been more successful if he had not shouted out first. "Don't encourage him," Naruto responded. "And there should be some kind of rule or law that keeps ninja from attacking another when carrying food." Naruto grumbled under his breath as he picked up his bags. "So what do you want Konohamaru? I was playing ninja with Udon and Moegi when I saw you with your girlfriend and had to test myself against my greatest rival." Konohamaru exclaimed proudly. "Hana-chan is not my girlfriend." Naruto replied vehemently. His and Haku's blush did not add credibility to his proclamation. "Boss has a girlfriend. Boss has a girlfriend." Konohamaru pointed and laughed as only a 9-year-old can. "Why you brat?" Naruto yelled. Kage Bushin no Jutsu, shadow clone skill. An exact duplicate of Naruto, down to the groceries, appeared in a puff of smoke. The Kage Bushin dropped its groceries, causing them to disappear in a puff of smoke, as Naruto handed it his groceries and run after Konohamaru who had taken off. Haku meanwhile giggled at Naruto and Konohamaru. "Will you take my groceries home as well? I should probably stop you from hurting Konohamaru too much." "Sure Hana-chan," Naruto's Kage Bushin answered before shifting its bags so it could take hers. Naruto just saw Konohamaru round the corner when he heard a yelp and an impact from the other side. When he reached the turn he saw Konohamaru on the ground and a strange blonde-haired kunoichi with a large war fan on her back rubbing her stomach. "Hey you brat, what do you think you're doing running into me?" the kunoichi shouted. "Sorry," Konohamaru said, "I wasn't watching where I was going." Konohamaru stood up and tried to bow in apology only for the kunoichi to slap him sending back to the ground. "Sorry isn't good enough," the blonde kunoichi angrily said. She stopped rubbing her stomach to reveal a large brown stain on her clothing. "You made me spilled my drink all over myself." By now Naruto had seen enough and decided to step in. "Hey leave him alone. Konohamaru already apologized, what more do you want? You stay out of this." The kunoichi exclaimed. "This isn't any of your business." "Well I'm making it my business." Naruto countered dropping his hand to his kunai holster. "You think you can stand up against us?" came a male voice from behind Naruto before wrapping his arms around Naruto. After weeks of taijutsu and grappling Naruto's response was pure reflex. Naruto's arms rose out and parallel to the ground to keep his assailant's arms from locking around him. Next he bent forward and took a small step back. Then he reached for his assailant's foot and pulled forward. This caused the assailant to stumble backwards and fall, taking Naruto with him. With a roll to the side Naruto brought the leg with him across his body. He then wrapped his legs around his opponent's legs and twisted his hips. This caused the leg he was holding to twist in an extremely painful angle. The pain caused Naruto's now victim to yell in pain. From start to finish Naruto had escaped and effectively immobilized his victim in under a second. The kunoichi recovered from her shock quickly. "Kankuro," she yelled reaching for her war fan. She was stopped by a firm grip on her wrist and a sharp needle placed at her temple. "I would not do that if I were you," a feminine voice said as cold as ice. "You are foreign shinobi attacking a citizen and a shinobi of Konoha. That was a rather foolish of you as wars have been started over less." The kunoichi tensed for a moment then gave a slight nod in acceptance and submission. "Very good." Haku removed her senbon needle from the kunoichi temple and her hand from the girl's wrist. With a quick jump she now stood next to Naruto, who had released the shinobi and proceeded to stand up. "Are you alright, Naruto-kun, Konohamaru?" "Yeah," Konohamaru said, and Naruto nodded. "Who are you and why are you in Konoha?" Naruto demanded. He was doing something normally out of character for him, thinking about what he was going to do next. His training with Kakashi in order to get him to think more had paid off, and Naruto was trying to get as much information as possible and analyze the situation. They're free now, but they know we're not to be taken lightly. "I don't know what that thing that guy has, but the girl uses a war fan. That means she's at least a long-distance fighter." Naruto smiled when he felt 3 new presences show themselves. He recognized them immediately: Sasuke and Hana's escort detail. From their looks they sensed them too. "We're Genin from Suna, Sand," the kunoichi answered, showing her ID. "I'm Tamari and this is my brother Kankuro. We're here for the Chunin exam. Combat from Chunin exam participants is strictly forbidden," the Anbu with a dog mask said. "As you were the aggressor in this, I can revoke you participation in the exam." "You can't," Kankuro protested. "That brat started all this." He pointed to Naruto. "He reached for his kunai and I was just trying to protect my Nichan sister." Only after she hit Konohamaru. Naruto objected. "Is this true, Sarutobi-sama?" the second Anbu in a snake mask asked. Tamari and Kankuro eyes widened in fear, as they recognized the family. Tamari had just about attacked someone of close relation to the Sandaime Hokage. And being who they were made this situation even worse. Konohamaru nervously looked back and forth between the Anbu, the foreign shinobi, and Naruto and Hana. The truth was, all he remembered was getting smacked the kunoichi and Naruto showing up. The rest was just a blur as it happened so fast. I don't know. Anbu-san, a new voice interrupted any comment. The group turned to Asuna Junin with a sheet of cloth covering the right half of his face. With his was a red-haired boy with a large gourd on his back. "I am Baki, Junin of Suna. Please do not revoke my team's admittance to the Chunin exam for Temari's lapse in judgment. We had just arrived from a long travel and were weary from the road. I am sure her temper got the best of temporarily and is most remorseful for her actions." Tamari took her cue and got down to her knees and placed her forehead on her hands. "I am sorry for my disreputable behavior, Sarutobi-sama. As the eldest child of the case cage, I should have accepted your apology when you made. I can only hope that my hasty actions did not sour the relations between our 2 villages." The Anbu stiffened ever so subtly at the addition of who these genin were. They had to tread very carefully or else all this could spiral out of control. Konohamaru, in way over his head, just stared in shock at the kneeling kunoichi. After a couple of seconds of silence, Konohamaru spoke up. Yeah, I should have watched where I was going. So that's all right. Hoping to avoid an international incident, the dog Anbu jumped in. As your subordinate has apologized and Sarutobi-sama has accepted, I think we can let this one incident go. Yes, Baki answered. We should put this unfortunate lack of control behind us so as not to strain our village's relations. I thank you for your leniency and I shall put an official reprimand into Temari's file for causing a, shall we say, unsightly commotion. That is fine with us, the snake Anbu nodded. We shall also give Uzumaki-san a reprimand for acting rashly in the face of a tense situation. Naruto was about to object, but Hana and Sasuke quickly and subtly told him not to. Naruto shut up but glared at the snake Anbu. Come, the 4 of you should speak with the Hokage about this. The Anbu ordered, and the Konoha residents nodded and walked off towards the Hokage tower. Before they got far, however, the red-haired boy spoke up. You 3, what are your names? Uzumaki Naruto, Naruto answered. Uchiha Sasuke, Sasuke followed. Haku did not answer as she knew it was harder to hit a target when an assassin did not know the person's name. I am Subaku no Gaara, Gaara of the desert. Gaara introduced himself. I hope to see you in the exam. A sudden chill went down Sasuke and Naruto's spine, though neither voiced their unease. Kakashi silently observed his team as they waited for him to show. The genin had taken to the idea of doing some extra self-training while they waited for him. Sasuke was doing some of his sprinting drills on top of the small river, thus training in chakra control and speed. Sakura was practicing with her new tonfas while dancing to a beat only she could hear. The weapon had been Yugo's suggestion to give Sakura some more power in close-quarter combat. And Naruto was literally wrestling with one of his cage Bushin, shadow clones. One had the other in a chokehold while the other tried to break free. Kakashi thought about his team and the changes they went through in the past 2 months. In terms of attitude and ability, the three had improved significantly. Sakura was finally past the little girl mindset completely and now took her training seriously. Sure, she still fawned after Sasuke, but now she only did it on her own time. On missions and training she attacked like a true kunoichi. Sasuke's attitude changed for the better. He now valued what Naruto and Sakura could bring to the team and even learned some things from them. Like how to break out of a rather nasty grapple Asuma showed Naruto a week ago and how to better regulate his chakra from Sakura. He still had a standoff attitude for the most part but less severe, and this made him much easier to get along with. Naruto improved the most. He was calmer now and less likely to go shouting at every little thing. His skill in taijutsu improved from sloppy uncoordinated punches and kicks to a rather brutal mix of strikes and locks. Naruto was still bursting with energy, but now it was tolerable to everyone. After seeing Naruto suplex his clone out of existence, Kakashi decided now was as good a time as any to show up. When he did, Naruto and Sakura rounded on him. "You're late." "Sorry, I saw a dust devil and had to find a vacuum angle to slay it," Kakashi replied. There was a moment of silence from Naruto and Sakura. Both were stunned that Kakashi actually came up with an original lie. Still, it was an obvious lie. "Liar," they shouted. Kakashi just gave them his happy eye, silently congratulating himself about his originality. "Well, today we'll skip training." The genin looked at him with open curiosity. Before they could ask why, Kakashi reached into his vest and pulled out 3 sheets of paper. "A couple of weeks ago you 3 asked me when the Chunin exam was. Well, last night the Hokage called a meeting to announce it would start at the beginning of next week. I've nominated you 3 to take it. If you want to, all you have to do is fill these out and turn them into room 301 on Monday." Immediately the sheets were snatched from his hand and the genin were looking them over. "Well, take the next week to decide if you're going to take the exam or not. Don't worry about if one of you doesn't feel ready, this is strictly voluntary. Well, bye." With a puff of smoke, Kakashi vanished, leaving the genin alone. After Kakashi left, he headed for the Hokage tower. The Hokage had called him to ask his opinion on Hana. The incident a couple of days ago raised a few eyebrows about the young woman. Some wanted to fully instate her as a Konoha kunoichi, as she showed no hesitation in defending one of Konoha's citizens. Others wanted her probation revoked and kick her out of Konoha for coming to Naruto's aid in making a potentially volatile situation even worse. The majority, however, wanted to praise the girl but also wanted to settle any bruised egos on Suna's part. In other words, they wanted Hana to remain on probation longer, as the Hokage was thinking of lifting it after the Chunin exam. Kakashi, before this incident, was leaning towards allowing the probation to be lifted after the Chunin exam. She had helped his team in more ways than Kakashi or any else could. Now he was siding with immediately instating Hana in the shinobi ranks. Kakashi analyzed the incident with the mind of an Anbu captain and field commander. To him, Hana acted just as one should have. She saw a threat and acted immediately to neutralize it with just enough force to get the job done with minimal collateral damage. She subdued the Suna kunoichi with enough skill and strength to show Hana could handle her, and backed off when the time was right and immediately went to see if Naruto and Konohamaru were all right. From there she had 2 options: attack again or retreat. The Anbu escort reported she positioned herself next to Konohamaru so that if need be she could get him to safety quickly yet still attack if necessary. This showed that Hana had great situational and tactical mindsets. Great qualities for an Anbu. Back with the genin of Team 7, Naruto and Sasuke were looking at each, both knowing they were face that Suna team and hoping that Gaara was strong. Both had 2 things in common: they lived alone and hated it with a passion, and the second, they like a challenge. Gaara looked like he would be a challenge. Sakura looked at her sheet in deep thought. She was actually looking at it from a big picture kind of mindset. Was she, Naruto and Sasuke ready for the exam? All 3 improved significantly since the mission to Wave. This was mostly mindset, but she read that being a Chunin had less to do with physical strength and more to do with attitude and thinking. Chunin were the ones that a country's normal armies on the field of battle, while Junin led the shinobi forces. This meant the responsibility to lead field to Chunin more than a Junin, as Junin would lead smaller forces. Both Sasuke and Naruto have the strength to make it through this easily. They probably won't pass, but the experience would be good for them, and the next exam they would have a better idea of what was expected. The question is, am I good enough to make it through and not be a burden? Sakura knew she was the weakest of the team, but like the others she had improved greatly. Enough that she was at least able to support her teammates in action and not just stand on the sidelines. Even if I'm not strong enough to compete with some of the others on my own, I can be the deciding factor in a fight if I back up Naruto and Sasuke. Sasuke-kun, Naruto, the boys turned to her. I think we should take the exam. I'm sure we'll be able to get through it. Sasuke developed a smirk of appreciation and Naruto started to dance around, proclaiming they would dominate the Chunin exam. The Chunin exam finally came. All around the village genin, both native and foreign, were making their way to the Konoha Ninja Academy. This included Team 7, they met at their usual training ground and then trekked their way to the building they left just 6 months ago. The whole trip was silent, each genin lost in their thoughts about the exam. Sakura was nervous, she knew she improved but was unsure if she was good enough to become a Chunin. Sasuke was full of anticipation. This was his chance to test his progress and maybe learn some foreign jutsu, all of which would help his life goal. Naruto, he was excited. If he made Chunin, he would prove to everyone who said he was a nothing but a loser he had what it took to be a shinobi. Upon entering the academy, Team 7 noticed an ever-growing amount of genin as they proceeded through the building. When ascended the stairs, Sasuke started to feel a slight headache, Naruto became dizzy and Sakura stopped. Bringing her hands together in a Tora, tiger, seal, Sakura whispered, "Kai, release." With a relieved exhale, she noticed Sasuke and Naruto were staring at her. "We just passed through a genjutsu. I cancelled its effects as soon as noticed it. That must have been the headache I just had," Sasuke muttered. Coping Sakura's actions, he released the genjutsu as well. He noticed the stairway seemed to shrink and the door at the top changed from a 3 to a 2. Kai. Naruto tried to release the genjutsu but he noticed nothing changed, showing nothing worked. Kai. Naruto tried harder and still nothing happened. Damn it. Kai. And still nothing happened. Then suddenly he noticed the stairwell shrank and the door at the top changed. He felt a hand on his left shoulder and saw Sakura's hand there. She had frown and slight glare, showing her thoughts of Naruto's failed attempts at dispelling the genjutsu. "What? You both know genjutsu is my worst skill. The fact that I could feel anything at all means I'm doing better." "Better isn't good enough," Sasuke replied. "That could be a liability." Without another word, he made way up the rest of the stairs. Sakura shook her head and trailed off after him. Naruto flicked Sasuke off for a second before following Sakura. Opening the door to the second floor, Team 7 were surprised to see a group of about 50 or so genin clustered around a door marked 204. It took a moment to realize that this was part of the genjutsu they just passed through. Guarding the door was 2 guys a couple of years older than Team 7. They were barring another Konoha team from entering. When the boy dressed in a green bodysuit tried to shove past the guards, he was shoved back, causing him to fall back into the crowd. The crowd started to move away from the door, increasing the amount of bodies in front of Team 7. "Hey, we're trying to get through," Sakura said to a genin from Iwa, Stone. "Could you move please?" Genin ignored her, muttering about, "Know it all genin." Sakura tried another genin only to get the same response. Sasuke and Naruto watched with growing amounts of annoyance. Where Sasuke would just scowl and stay silent, Naruto would not. "Get out of the way." All conversation stopped at Naruto's shout. Soon all 50-some odd genin were staring at the loud blonde. After a few seconds of silence, staring and no actions, Naruto yelled again, "I said get out of the way." Startled by the shout, the other genin started part and Team 7 made their way through the crowd and past the guarded door. As they walked past, one of the guards spoke up, "After all the fuss you up, you'd think you would want to try and enter the room." "Why would we do that?" Sasuke asked. "This is only the second floor." This got a surprised gasp from the majority of the crowd. "The genjutsu started on the stairwell, we dispelled it as soon as we noticed." "Not bad," the guard with a bandage across his nose said. "But not good enough." He lunged at Sasuke, who immediately tried to counter. The boy wearing the green bodysuit stopped Sasuke and the guard. I didn't even sense him move. Sasuke thought. He looked so weak before, was he just acting? So much for not showing our full strength. A girl dressed in Chinese-style clothing with her hair tied up in buns. And it was your idea too. Sorry, the green-clad boy said. I couldn't stop myself. He looked Sakura and started to blush. You're the most beautiful girl I've ever seen. Will you go out with me? Sakura gave the boy a once-over. His hair was cut like a bowl, with so much gel as shined, and his eyebrows were so thick they looked alive. No way, you're too weird. You don't have to be so mean, the boy replied sadly. Lee, another boy, spoke to the green-dressed one. He had long black hair and eyes so pale they looked just off-white. Now that you've exposed us, we should be going. Lee frowned for a moment, then nodded and followed the bun-haired girl and the white-eyed boy out down the hall. Team 7 continued on past the still stunned crowd and came to a small sparring area. There they met the Lee kid from a few minutes earlier. You are Uchiha Sasuke, Lee said. I am Rock Lee. I wish to test myself against strong people before the exam begins. Hey, what about me? Naruto said. I'm better than Sasuke. To try and prove his point, Naruto charged Lee. Lee stood there until Naruto was a step away. Then with only a blur he stepped into Naruto's guard and delivered a spinning sweep to his legs. Naruto fell but rolled with the fall while throwing a hidden kunai from his sleeve. Lee dodged right into Naruto, who grabbed Lee by the front of his suit, placed his right leg on Lee's sternum and fell backwards, throwing Lee across the room. Lee recovered easy enough with a flip and landed gracefully next to Sasuke. You are indeed good, Uzumaki Naruto. But now I wish to test Uchiha Sasuke. You have my attention, Sasuke said just before he threw a kick at Lee. Lee easily dodged the kick and countered with a spinning elbow to Sasuke's gut. He's fast and hits hard. Sasuke thought, wincing as he jumped clear. He went into a guarded stance before Lee charged. Unfortunately, Lee moved so quickly he vanished from sight. He got inside Sasuke's guard and punched him in the face, sending Sasuke sprawling to the ground. If this is all you have, then the rumors about you are greatly exaggerated, Lee said. Sasuke rubbed his nose, making sure it was not broken before closing his eyes for a brief second. When he opened his eyes again, they were red with 2 tomo around each pupil. You won't be able to fool these eyes, Sasuke said before dashing at Lee. Lee remained in place until Sasuke was 2 steps away before vanishing in a burst of speed. The next thing Sasuke knew, he was getting kicked in the chin, sending him soaring into the air. A moment later he heard Lee speak from directly behind him. Your eyes allow you to see through ninjutsu, genjutsu and taijutsu. However, the inherent flaw in your eye is that you can only react as fast as you have trained your body. Simply put, you are not fast enough to match me. Now let's finish this. With that, Lee started to finish the fight. He unwrapped the bindings on his right arm and started to twirl it around Sasuke. Just before it went tight, a pinwheel caught the end and sticking into the wall, throwing Lee off trajectory and allowing Sasuke to escape. When Naruto and Sakura reached Sasuke, they heard a deep voice shout, Lee. What had I told you about using that jutsu? I'm sorry, Guy-sensei. Lee apologized to a larger version him. Team 7 could not believe 2 people would dress the same way. Then again, considering the similarities between the two, they could have been father and son. You know what this mean, right? Guy asked. Lee nodded just before Guy punched Lee to the face, sending him tumbling floor. In the blink of an eye, Guy was next to Lee and suddenly the entire area was changed to a large beach scene at sunset. Guy was crying his eyes out, cradling Lee like a dying son. Lee, you must learn to control the fires of your youth, for if you do not, they will burn themselves out. I know, Guy-sensei, Lee stage whispered. But the idea of facing such a strong person like Uchiha Sasuke caused my fires to become like a forest fire, burning away all else. I understand, Lee, Guy cried. I feel the same way with my eternal rival. But that is when you must have the most control. With an overly dramatic rise, Guy stood up with Lee following. Still crying, Guy continued, if you lose control of you fires of youth, the forest that fueled the fire would be nothing but ash. Lee nodded vigorously, his tears matched his sensei. So to teach you control, you have to take your punishment. 500 laps around Konoha on your hands. Yes, Guy-sensei. Lee saluted. And if I cannot complete those laps, I shall do 1,000 crunches. And if I can't do that, I shall. Lee started to list off more and more insane tasks as he went on. Meanwhile, Team 7 was wondering what kind of genjutsu they were in. All three were confused by the sudden change of scenery and spent the last few minutes trying to dispel it. Obviously none of them succeeded. I don't know how to explain this, but what we're watching is not a genjutsu, Sasuke announced, revealing his Sharingan was still activated. I can't see even a trace of chakra. There was a tremble in his voice as he looked around frantically trying to find the source of the genjutsu. These guys must be like super strong ninja to do this, Naruto said with awe in his voice. First that fuzzy-browed kid moves so fast we can't even see him, and now this super fuzzy-browed guy can make a genjutsu not even the Sharingan can see. Naruto turned to Sasuke. Do you think some ninja have a bloodline that can stop the Sharingan? Sasuke blinked his Sharingan off and contemplated what Naruto said. In the records of the Uchiha clan there was no mention on a clan that could negate the Sharingan. If they lived in the same village there should at least be a mention of it. I don't think so, Sasuke said, though his voice was unsure. Ha ha ha, Gaia laughed, ending the strange genjutsu. Impressed, I see. What you have witnessed is not a bloodline but the fruit of hard work and the flames of youth, the child of the will of fire. With hard work and the flames of youth you can do. Guy blinked out of sight, then he appeared right behind Team 7, anything. Team 7 was more than a little startled, not a one of them even saw this guy twitch before he moved. How can anyone be that fast? Sakura thought. Even Sasuke couldn't see him, her inner voice agreed. So you are Kakashi's students, Guy addressed them. I've heard about you three. I have to say I'm impressed. I hope you give my team a good challenge at the exam. You know Kakashi-sensei? Sakura asked. Yes, I am Maida Guy and he is my internal rival, Guy answered. Our record is 50-49 in my favor, meaning I'm the stronger. That stunned Team 7 somewhat as they thought Kakashi was among if not the strongest Junin in Konoha. It looks like the exam will start soon. You should all get to the room. With that, Guy vanished once again. As thanks for fight me I will give you a warning, Lee said, wrapping his bindings. Naruto caught how much callus and scars were on his knuckles and nudged Sakura to point them out. She nodded in understanding. On my team is the strongest genin in Konoha, Hyuga Neji. It is him I truly wish to defeat, but I would very much like to fight both of you two in the Chunin exam. Farewell. Lee finished wrapping his binding and jumped up to the third floor. Soon Team 7 was walking up the stairs talking about their encounter. That Lee kid must train extremely hard, Sakura said. Those wounds look mouths old. I wonder how long he trains to get like that. I would say he trains more than us, Naruto replied. I mean, look at our hands, they're nothing like his. Naruto held up his hand and his knuckles had some callus on them, but nowhere near the amount that Lee had. Oddly enough, to Team 7 there were no scars. Sasuke looked at his hands and saw they were much like Naruto's, only with scars as well as callus. Sakura only had a couple of scars and little callus. What I wonder is about that flames of youth stuff. That super fuzzy brow said something about being the son of the will of fire. You think they're part of some kind of temple of something? Sakura and Sasuke thought about that. They, like most people in Konoha, were part of the will of fire philosophy but had never heard of the flames of youth. Their contemplation was interrupted by a familiar voice at the top of the stairs. I see you ran into Maida Guy and his student Rock Lee. There, standing in his usual slouched position, was Kakashi, ever-present book in hand. Don't try to figure out how they do that beach scene. It's driven more Junin to early retirement than most S-rank missions. It's just something they can do. Kakashi spoke with a tone of long experience on that subject. Well, anyway, I'm glad all three of you showed up. If not, I would have barred the others from taking the exam. What? Why? Naruto demanded. Taking the Chunin exam requires a team of 3 genins, Kakashi answered. So if one of you didn't want to participate, then the others would have been out of luck. But you said it was our choice, Sakura said. I didn't want any of you trying to pressure the others, Kakashi replied. To become a Chunin is a big step in your life, bigger than even graduating the academy. Being Chunin means others will rely on you to make command decisions and to think things through. You can't go rushing into things blind. Kakashi gave a significant glance at Naruto, who just pouted at the not-so-subtle accusation. When you begin, remember this bit of advice. The most important part of being a ninja is teamwork. With that, you three should do fine. Good luck. Luck is for weaklings. Sasuke said, striding into the test room with Naruto and Sakura quickly following him. Sarutobi Sasuke sat in his office contemplating the file before him. It was the file for a young woman looking to enter Konoha's shinobi forces, namely, Hana. The incident with the Kage's children brought his decision to head. For the past 2 months he had an Anbu detail following the young woman to try and evaluate her personality. Strength was not an issue because whatever level she was, or at least showed, would eventually come out in missions. No, what the Sandaime Hokage wanted to know was what kind of person Hana was. Early in Konoha's founding, the Shodai had an unwritten rule that Konoha ninja would have a certain level of compassion and caring to other people. Some disagreed with the policy, feeling that it would show weakness towards other villages. Sarutobi did not agree. He felt that Konoha retained its strength by those ideals. After all, a man fights hardest when he is protecting something he cares about. The Anbu reports over the last 2 months showed Hana to be a caring young woman to those she likes and polite if cold to those she does not. In particular were the notes made about how she acted around people when she was with Naruto. To the people that liked Naruto, such as the ramen stand and Iruka, she was pleasant, polite girl that was quick to smile and easy to talk to. With people who hated him, such as some of the academy sensei, she acted like a cold aristocrat. Those people were not worth her time and their insults to Naruto were a personal affront to her. Ironically, this had many of the less in the know civilians treating Naruto better, as they thought Hana was some young noble woman. These actions had the Hokage leaning to allow her to join Konoha, as she did show she had the same ideals as he wanted his subordinates to strive for. On top of all these reports, however, was the latest report, the incident involving Hana, Naruto, Konohamaru and the Kage's children. According to all witnesses, including the Anbu and Uchiha Sasuke, Hana acted just as Sarutobi hoped all his shinobi would. She jumped in to assist a friend and a young boy, namely Naruto and Konohamaru. When it was revealed who the Tsunade team actually was, she conducted herself in a truly professional manner. Enough of a threat to keep the others aware, but not enough of one to escalate a possibly volatile situation. She also checked to make sure no one was injured, a true sign of a medic nin, something Konoha was always looking for. In short, the Sandaime Hokage decided that Hana would join Konoha as soon as the Chunin exam was complete. Currently, the young woman in question was wondering what to do with her day. For the most part, her existence in Konoha was focused around 2 things: her mission and work. Her mission was up in the air, and that had little to do with the Chunin exam, as her resolve to end Team 7's lives had been wavering for weeks now. For work, she had the day off, as everyone was at home or at the bars waiting for the results of the first exam to come in. It turned out a lot of bets were being made about who would pass the first test. Team 7 and the other Konoha rookies had a low chance of passing. Not that Haku could blame those odds. It was rare for rookie genin to be nominated, much less pass their first Chunin exam. Then again, from the gossip she heard from working at the kimono shop, this year's rookie 9 were supposed to be the best Konoha had in years. But that did not solve her current dilemma: what to do with the day. Maybe I'll go see if Ayame is free, Haku thought. The 2 young women had become friends rather quickly after the first meeting. The reason was simple: both saw the other cared for Naruto. At the time, Haku had started the friendship as a ruse to get closer to Naruto and the rest of Team 7. But as with all her other plans, her acting quickly became genuine feelings. The truth is, Haku had no friends after being on the run for so long. This was just one more aspect Haku found she had in common with Naruto: very few friends. Making her way to the ramen stand, Haku was not surprised to find it nearly empty. In fact, only one person was actually there: Amino Iruka. With a smile of true joy, Haku quickened her stride to the stand. When she arrived, she caught the middle of a conversation about the Chunin exam. "Should do well," Iruka said. "Kiba and Shino are actually among the best trackers I've taught, and as long as Hinata sticks with them, they should at least make it to the final test." "Is Hinata that Hyuga girl that's following Naruto around every so often?" Ichiruka asked. "Yeah, that's her," Iruka nodded. "She's had a crush on Naruto for as long as I can remember. She just seems too shy to approach him." "Perhaps she would be given some encouragement," Haku spoke up. "That's funny, I would have thought you would object to having some completion," Ichiruka said with a teasing smile. "What's that supposed to mean?" Haku replied, more than a little startled. Well, with all the time you spend with him and that little dinner date you two had a couple of weeks ago. Ichiruka trailed off, his smile never leaving his face. We are just friends and that dinner was not a date. Haku insisted, turning red with embarrassment. Whatever you say, Ichiruka replied, I believe you. His tone made it clear that he believed no such thing. Iruka had his head down away from view, but his shaking shoulders and soft snorts showed he was trying to hold in his laughter. Otto-san, father, stop that, Ayame scolded. You're embarrassing her. Ayame swat her father's head, took off her apron and left the kitchen area. Come on Hana, let's get away from these two. Taking Haku's hand and walking away in an indignant huff, Ayame left her father to fend for himself for the rest of the day. At the Chunin exam, Naruto was facing his worst enemy, a written test. The first test of the Chunin exam turned out to be a knowledge test rather than a practical skills test. Naruto had learned a lot since Wave. His ability to take tests had not improved one bit. Damn, it just had to be a written test, didn't it? Naruto yelled inside mind at the universe. This is so unfair. I mean, how the hell am I supposed to know? He paused to read sixth question again. The calculation necessary to ignite an explosive note 20 meters away while the note is being drenched with a sweetened water element. Jutsu with a 25 km/h wind gust. After a frustrated pull of his hair, Naruto took a deep breath to calm down, just as Hana had taught him. After 3 more breaths, Naruto was able to think clearly once again and looked around the room to see how everyone else was doing. Naruto first looked for his teammates. Unfortunately, he could only find Sasuke. Apparently Sakura was behind him in a higher seat. He did not dare look to make sure because he did not want to be accused of cheating. Back to Sasuke, Naruto noticed that he had little trouble in answering the questions if the constant motion of his hands was any indication. Just great, I bet that Teme knows every last one of these questions. For a few moments Naruto let his anger at begin shown up by Sasuke get to him. But after another couple of calming breaths, Naruto began to look around the room once again. This time he noted several odd actions, like a small white ball hovering just over the shoulder of a foreign genin, or the fact that the girl to his left, Hinata, had a lot of veins pulsing around her eyes. That's weird, Naruto thought, staring at her. Apparently Naruto was staring at her for too long as Hinata's eyes returned to normal and she looked away from him. Naruto was obviously unaware of the bright red blush forming on the girl's face. After taking a few moments to calm down, Hinata took a glance at Naruto's paper, and just as she feared, it was empty. Naruto seems to have figured out we're supposed to cheat, Hinata thought. She had seen him glancing around the room, taking note of several of the more unique methods of spying. She saw his curious gaze and misinterpreted it for wondering what he would do instead of what was going on. She took another glance and found him looking at another Konoha nin coping off another person. Naruto had a frown on his face that she thought was disapproval of such a blatant method of cheating. Naruto must not have a sufficient method of spying to get past the proctors and is not taking the risk. But if he doesn't answer at least one question, he won't have anything to fall back on if he gets the final one wrong. Worried about her inspiration, Hinata decided to help Naruto copy her answers. I just have to move it a little bit and move my arm. Then I can help Naruto without getting caught and letting down Kiba and Shino. With just a little bit of motion, she moved her paper into Naruto's peripheral vision and bent her elbow just enough for him to see the first 2 answers of the test. Naruto did not pick up on such a subtle motion from Hinata. No, his concentration was focused on the Konoha nin a row down that was copying of a genin from AIM, Rain. He was trying to get quick clues on the guy's technique so he could cheat as well. Unfortunately, the Konoha genin had just taken one more glance when one of the proctors yelled, "Number 56 fail. You, number 72 and 33 are out of here. Hey, you can't prove anything." The Konoha genin argued. The proctor's response was to whip a kunai right between the teen's legs. "Ah, get out unless you don't want me to miss next time I throw," the proctor said, pulling out another kunai. The genin quickly left the room followed by his teammates. Naruto meanwhile had flinched at the yell and caught sight of Hinata's exposed paper. Yes, I can get answers from her, he thought. Though I have to be careful unless I get kicked out like that other guy. With his small movements, Naruto positioned his eyes so he could just see Hinata's paper out of the corner of his eye. Thankfully, his ability to see out of his peripheral had increased thanks to Hana in the last month, thus he was able to see most of Hinata's first 2 answers. After slowly and carefully copying what he could, Naruto checked his answers. They were mostly complete and felt if he could take one more glance he could get the rest. Hinata, who had seen Naruto writing his incomplete answers, decided to help him again by scooting her paper another centimeter closer. This seemed to do the trick as Naruto was able to complete his answers. I helped Naruto. Hinata thought happily even as she saw the obvious tension leave Naruto's shoulders. Up on the top row, Sakura had been watching Naruto's back and also saw him relax. I wonder why he's so relaxed. No, she muttered. For the first half an hour of the exam she saw Naruto become stressed, angered, and scared after that kunai throw, and now he suddenly relaxed. There's no way he could have answered any of the questions by himself. I could barely answer most of them. Maybe Hinata helped him. She knew Hinata liked Naruto. Why was another question, but she knew Hinata did and figured if anyone would help Naruto it would be Hinata. Still, with Naruto relaxed, a lot of Sakura's own anxiety had left. Up until this point she had been worried Naruto would blow and choke like he did on several written tests back at the academy. With the clock winding down and several teams leaving to do losing to many points, she was worried Naruto would put everything on the last question. All of nothing seems to be Naruto's unwritten motto, Sakura thought. I'm just glad Naruto's learned some patience from Kakashi-sensei and Hana. Still not as cool as Sasuke-kun, Sakura's inner voice said. Alright, that's it, pens down. The scarred Junin Ibiki said. Several of the genin sighed that the first part was finally over and some even relaxed a little. To the back of the room a door opened and a proctor and the Suna genin Konkuro entered. Glad to see you didn't spend too much time playing with your doll. Konkuro paused for a minute looking surprised and saw a bunch of knowing grins. With a nervous look he made his way back to his seat and waited. Now that everyone who is going to be here is back, we can now ask the final question. He paused to get everyone's full attention, but first you need to know some more rules. There were several groans about more rules, but Ibiki ignored them. The first rule is that this is an all or nothing question. Either you take it or all your points are reduced to 0 and you fail. That's not fair, Sakura yelled. What about the first 9 questions? First life isn't fair, Ibiki replied, especially a shinobi's. Next, those questions served their purpose, to weed out those who can't spy worth a damn. If you can't spy or cheat well on a simple written exam, then you don't deserve to be ninja, much less a chunin. Now for the second rule. If you take this question and get it wrong, I will revoke your right to ever be chunin. You can't do that, Asuna Nin yelled. You can't have that authority over us. Besides, there are those who took this exam before and failed. By the treaty that the hidden villages signed that established the chunin exam, I have that right, Ibiki calmly answered. And you had the bad luck of having me as your examiner. I'm a lot tougher on you than they would be. Now no more stalling. Are you going to take the final question and risk everything, or are you going to take the easy way out and quit? For several seconds no one did anything, then a genin from Iwa stood up. I can't risk it. I quit, I'll take the exam again later. Sorry guys, he apologized to his teammates as they were led out the door. Soon several other teams were leaving, just too scared to risk their careers. In the stands several of the Konoha rookies were debating if they should quit. At the top Sakura was wondering she should quit for Naruto so he could keep his dream of Hokage alive. A few seats over Shikamaru was calculating which the bigger hassle Ino was or finishing the exam. Next to Naruto, Hinata was shaking with indication about looking cowardly in front of Naruto or doing what was safe. Even Sasuke was contemplating quitting, risking the chance to go up in rank and thus get access to better training. After another minute Ibiki got impatient and asked, well, is there anyone else? Naruto took this as his cue to stand up. The entire room now focused on the blonde boy, especially Ibiki. You got something to say, midget? Yeah, I got something to say, Naruto said lowly. Then he looked Ibiki right in the eye and demanded, ask your damn question. I promised the people close to me I would do my best, and I don't break my promises. That is my ninja way. You hear me? I won't quit no matter what. The shock from the rest of the genin was like a ripple in water. Many could not believe Naruto's boldness to such an intimidating man. Still, it had one side effect that anyone could see. No one was wavering anymore, all were staying right where they were. Alright, Ibiki said, then I just have one last thing to say. Congratulations on passing the first test. Again there was shock followed by confusion and a lot of questioning looks. Let me explain, there was no final question, or rather the decision to stay was the final question. Why? Kiba asked. Because as a Chunin you will be asked to make tough choices, dangerous choices and safe choices, Ibiki explained. Like whether to accept a mission with a high danger mission or not. The answer is obvious, of course, to take the mission. If you don't have the guts to take such mission, then you might as well quit being a shinobi. Our lives are always filled with danger. He took off his bandana, revealing several hideous scars, to emphasize his point. Those cowards who couldn't even risk their promotion, much less their lives, don't deserve to be Chunin, much less any other rank. The crowd was in agreement. They knew the risks in taking the exam. They had been told several times. If the other were not willing to risk everything, then why did they sign up for a life-threatening exam? Just as well, there was no room for people like that in the Chunin exam. Now this part is over. You should all be warned that the next part will be a lot. A loud crash interrupted Ibiki's sentence as human projectile crashed through the window and threw up a banner saying, Mitarashi Anko, the second stage examiner. You babies better be prepared, for now it's my turn. You're early, Anko, Ibiki said dryly. 30 teams? Anko asked. You must be losing your touch, old man. Good crop this year, Ibiki counted. Doesn't matter, after I'm done I bet only half if not less remain, Anko said in a tone that left the genin with a sense of dread. Panic, a state of sudden fear that dominates or replaces rational thought. A part of Sakura's mind recited. The part of her that she kept separate from the outside world, her inner Sakura, told her to move, run, fight. Anything really, as long as it got her away from the shinobi stalking towards her and Sasuke. Unfortunately for Sakura, inner Sakura's voice was drowned out by the visions of a kunai being rammed into her forehead over and over again. Fortunately for Sakura, however, Sasuke was able to shake off the worst effects of the panic-inducing genjutsu, illusion. He accomplished this by activating his Sharingan just prior to the genjutsu hitting. He knew the death scene was just a chakra-induced hallucination, but that did not stop the more primitive part of his mind from reacting. Unlike Sakura, he did not freeze. Sasuke let his fight-or-flight instinct take over and grabbed Sakura and made a run for it. A shinobi's greatest ally is their instincts, Sasuke's mind quoted Kakashi. If your instincts tell you to run and you can do so without risking a teammate's life, do so. Thus Sasuke ran. After a grueling sprint across the treetops of the Forest of Death, Sasuke found an alcove that provided a temporary defensible position. Landing in the alcove and depositing Sakura against the tree, Sasuke began a calming exercise he learned from Team 7's unofficial assistant instructor, Hana. Start with the breathing, Sasuke thought, taking a deep breath. Control your breath and pulse, then relax your muscles. The tension in his shoulders eased ever so slightly, and finally slow your chakra flow. In less than a second Sasuke's panic receded, his mind cleared and alertness returned to a trained soldier instead of a frightened animal. Now for Sakura, Sasuke whispered. Remembering the second lesson to dealing with panic, this one taught by Kakashi. Sasuke had to choose from two methods. Talk the other person down or slap them. Sasuke decided on the quicker of the two. Sasuke. Sakura half asked, half demanded. What? Her question was cut off by Sasuke placing his hand over her mouth. Quiet, Sasuke demanded. We can't stay. We have not gone far from that. Junin, I guess, as we can. We need to get moving. Sakura nodded, understanding the reason. This shinobi was at least a Junin and targeted them specifically. That meant the Chunin exam was put on hold for the moment. Still, that left one question: what about Naruto? Oh, you shouldn't worry about him, the deep, twisted-sounding voice of their attacker said from above them. Sakura and Sasuke's heads jerked up, seeing the shinobi's torso hanging out of the tree. He's already become food for my pets. About a mile away, Naruto was having his own moment of panic. Unlike his teammates, this was not caused by a ninja of overwhelming ability. It was caused by the fact that he was being eaten alive by largest snake he had ever seen. Okay. Remember what Iruka-sensei said about stuff like this. A ninja is never trapped. So never think of yourself in a hopeless situation. Okay, so I'm in a snake, it's alive, it has two exits. Don't want to go backwards, so I had to go out the mouth. That means I have to make this thing puke. Struggling to bring his hands above his head to make the Ryu, dragon, seal, Naruto started to channel chakra for one of the most basic medical just you technique taught the Shimakeru Hido, vomit-inducing, no jutsu. All it did was upset a person's stomach, but it was standard practice for ingested poison. As Naruto's chakra spread through the snake's body, the muscles started to spasm. Then the muscles behind Naruto contracted and the ones in front of him relaxed. The next thing Naruto knew, he was sailing through the air and crashing into some underbrush. Standing quickly, Naruto jumped up to a nearby branch to find out where the snake had gone. If he acted just a second later, he probably would have been caught in the snake's coils. So not giving up, huh? Naruto called. Well, let's see how you like this. Naruto reached into his back pouch and pulled out a special kunai. What was special about it was it had 3 explosive notes attached to it. 1 around the handle, and 2 tied to the rein. With his strongest possible heave, Naruto threw the kunai at the snake, piercing it right in its eye. Naruto quickly ducked behind the tree he was standing on and covered his ears. With the strength of the explosion and his proximity to the source covering his ears hardly did anything for the genin. The explosion was so loud, in fact, that Naruto blacked out for a moment and nearly fell out of the tree. Coming to and shaking his head, Naruto surveyed the damage done by his kunai bomb. Several branches were blown apart, there were scorch marks on the tree trunks, and the only thing left of the snake was a small bits of the body scattered in every direction. That was cool, Naruto said in awe. Still got to find the others. He was about to head off, but a wave of dizziness caused him to pause, as soon as my ears stopped ringing. Currently Sasuke and Sakura were struggling just to stay alive. They were correct that the ninja they were facing was at least a Junin, and with each passing second it became obvious that he was above even that. For no matter what they threw at him, what jutsu they used, or how well they worked together, this ninja kept up with them with little effort. Kukukik, you are a special one, aren't you, Sasuke? Your eyes allow you to see how I'm going to move and you react accordingly. While all users of the Sharingan can do this, very few were actually able to do so under such stressful conditions. The shinobi paused to look Sasuke in the eye for just a brief moment, too quickly for Sasuke to use any optical genjutsu he was just starting to learn. The fact that you only progressed to the 2nd stage in each eye shows your talent. With the shinobi's back turned, Sakura tried to get the drop on him. She targeted the back, the shinobi's legs, one of the more vulnerable parts on the human body. Before Sakura could come within a meter of the shinobi, however, he twisted his body that was entirely inhumane and sent a palm strike to the girl's chest, stopping her momentum cold and knocking the air from her lungs. And you should stay out of matters that don't concern you, he scolded with distance. Without even looking away from Sakura, his right arm shot out with a pair-hand strike to Sasuke's throat, stopping the point-blank range fire technique he was about to use. Using your teammate's attack to get in a killing blow, his face twisted into a grotesque smile. With that mentality you will make an excellent assassin. Maybe enough to kill Itachi. Sasuke, still gasping for breath, wheezed out, "Wah! You? Abu, Itachi?" All in good time, the shinobi smirked, "But I think I've learned enough about you." "Yes, you did very well indeed. Better than I thought. I think you will do well with my gift." The attacker made a Oitsuji, ram, seal, and his arm shot out to the Sasuke, grabbing his neck. He was about to pull the boy to him when a shout interrupted. "And I think you talk too much," Naruto called, heaving a windmill shuriken at the shinobi. The shinobi actually looked surprised to see Naruto and for a split second just stood there. That split second allowed Sasuke to grab thumb on the hand holding him and twisting. This caused the shinobi to release Sasuke as he dodged the large throwing weapon and the one that was right behind the first. Having to dodge 2 unexpected attacks made the shinobi retreat just a little bit, allowing Naruto and the just recovered Sakura to join Sasuke. "So the 3 of you together, the shinobi mocked. "2 of you almost made me sweat, and if the 3rd one is here, that means he beat my pet. I guess I'm going to have to take you more seriously now." The shinobi flashed through 4 hand seals before saying, "Kachiyose, summoning, no jutsu." A large snake, about 2.5 times bigger than the one Naruto killed, appeared out of the smoke. Sakura had devoted nearly all of her efforts to bookwork back at the academy. She came to regret this decision now that she spent time in the field where that knowledge was practically useless. In this case, it sent a spike of fear up her spine as she recognized the summon animal from her history lessons. "Orochimaru," her voice trembled. "You're Orochimaru. Oh, you are a clever one. Orochimaru mocked as he peeled the skin off of his face to reveal his true white skin tone underneath. With a stamp of his foot, the snake under him lunged forward, mouth open ready to eat the genin whole. "Oh hell no," Naruto yelled. If there was one thing he never wanted to do again, it was to get eaten a snake. Kage Bushin, Shadow Clone, no Jutsu. 10 Kage Bushin appeared and their puffs of smoke distracted the snake just enough for Team 7 to dodge the attack. The clones did not last more than a second, however, as the snake's mass simply crushed them, ending their existence. Orochimaru, being above the snake, was able to see which way the genin dodged. The two boys launched to the sides, each in a good flanking position to pelt him with either long-range jutsu or weapons. The girl, however, jumped back and up, landing on the same branch but at a higher altitude. This position would have given her a place to counter-attack the snake, had he not been on top of it. "You're clearly the weakest link, little girl," Orochimaru taunted as he zipped up to the girl. Sakura tried to move, but Orochimaru struck with the speed of a pit viper. One blow to the face and she was out of the fight. "Sakura-chan," Naruto yelled. With the rage at seeing one of his few friends injured, Naruto charged. His charge were more motivated by habit than stupidity. After all, it is human nature to fall back on ingrained habits, and Naruto had a habit of rushing into any situation, despite over 2 months of Kakashi trying to get him to think before he acts. Naruto's charge did have one advantage. It shifted Orochimaru's attention to him for a moment. In that moment, Sasuke flashed through a set of hand seals since he was 6 years old. Kaden. Gukakyu, Fire Element. Grand Fireball, no Jutsu. A fireball 3 meters across sped towards Orochimaru, forcing him to dodge once again. Naruto. Grabs Sakura. Naruto changed his trajectory just slightly in order to miss the fireball and grab the downed teammate. In Sasuke's haste and Naruto's blind charge, both forgot about the snake summon. When the fires started to dissipate from lack of fuel, the snake lunged up at Naruto and Sakura. They were lucky that the snake kept its mouth closed, did not want to risk getting its mouth burnt. Naruto only had a heartbeat to put his body between Sakura and the snakes, taking the entirety of the hit and into unconsciousness. This sent Naruto and Sakura high into the air and then plummeting back downward right into the snake's waiting mouth. Just as the snake was about to swallow both Sakura and Naruto whole. It would have too, if not for a windmill shuriken piercing the snake's eye, causing it to hiss in pain and veer off to the side. The windmill shuriken was quickly followed by 2 kunai that caught Sakura and Naruto and pinned them to the trees. "I'm always having to save them," Sasuke muttered, his Sharingan active once more so he could get the trajectory of his throws right. "You shouldn't be so easily distracted, Sasuke-kun," Orochimaru taunted from just behind Sasuke. The genin was only able to avoid the blow to the back of his head because of his recent speed training. But even then, neither his eyes nor his body could react fast enough to the follow-up knee to his chin. All Sasuke could do was mitigate the blow by allowing himself to relax and let the momentum of the strike send him flying away. Sasuke could see the ground was approaching and angled himself so he would land with minimal injury. As soon as he stopped, Orochimaru was in his personal space again. "When I saw you use the girl's attack as an opening earlier, I thought you had the potential to beat your brother. But seeing you get so easily distracted just a moment ago, I may have to reconsider my assessment." "What the hell would you know?" yelled, taking a blind swing at the snake summoner. "I know it will take more than talent and the easy lifestyle living in Konoha to defeat a man like him," Orochimaru answered as he neglectfully blocked the punch. "It will take a lot more than anything here to bring out your true strength." Orochimaru grinned again as he leaned forward, invading Sasuke's personal space even more. "But I can give you training that will allow you to surpass not only your own limitations but those of your brother as well." Orochimaru could see the anticipation in Sasuke's eyes. He has read Sasuke's psychological profile before coming here. He knew the boy's lust for revenge and power. To prove he had what it take to surpass the man to destroy his world. And like all master manipulators, Orochimaru knew the best way to recruit someone was to tell them exactly what they want to hear, but with a twist. "As I said before, you're special, but men like myself and Itachi are in leagues of our own. I'll give you a gift." Orochimaru's proposal was cut off as he jerked his head to a charging Naruto. Around the boy was a red aura and presence that radiated an animal fury. With a quick Kawarimi replacement, Orochimaru dodged away from the body tackle and gave himself a safe distance to observe the new factor. While the boy's speed and agility showed a dramatic increase, they were still no match for his own, making a minimal threat. Still, it was an unknown ability, and unknown abilities were what got Shinobi killed. Naruto. Sasuke flinched. He had never seen Naruto move that fast before. Naruto rounded on Sasuke, displaying his changed facial features. His red animal-like eyes, deeper birthmarks, fangs and clawed fingers. The aura and the changed features in all honestly frightened Sasuke more than Orochimaru's genjutsu, because there was no genjutsu. The effect made looking at Naruto feel like he was staring into the eyes of an apex predator looking for its next meal. Sasuke's flinch calmed Naruto down just enough to loose the aura but still keep the animal features. Naruto turned back to Orochimaru, who was looking on with a closed-off face, not letting anyone know what he was thinking. "Watch for an opening," Naruto said before charging Orochimaru. Sasuke tried to call Naruto back, but he was already 3/4 of the distance there and called forth 20 cage bushins. If Orochimaru was surprised by the number of cage bushins, he gave no indications. What he did do was take the genin more seriously. Quickly flashing through hand seals that Sasuke only vaguely knew, Orochimaru said, "Kaden. Karyu Enden, Fire Element Dragon Projectile." A focused stream of fire roared out of Orochimaru's mouth and engulfed all the clones in a blaze of death. When the smoke cleared, there were no signs of a body, causing Orochimaru to narrow his eyes. Taking a quick glance around the area, he saw a broken sapling near a scorched tree. This allowed him to know which direction Naruto would come from and thus dodge out of the way of another 3 cage bushin. With a quick flick of his wrist, Orochimaru destroyed the cage bushins. What he did not expect was to land right next to another 3 cage bushins, whom all had a burning explosive note in hand. The explosion blasted the snake summoner across the clearing and right into a crude network of ninja wire. "Got you," Sasuke smirked. He had followed the entire exchange, his Sharingan. He saw Naruto veer off to the side and create another set of cage bushin just before the fire killed his others, and knew Naruto was trying to create an opening. He quickly came up with a plan to trap the traitor and end this in one blow. A part of him was tempted by the offer, but it was only a small part at the moment. "Kaden. Ryuka. Fire Element. Dragon Fire. No Jutsu. Ha, take that, you pale-faced freak," Naruto yelled with a small bunch of cage bushin coming out from the tree line. He had created several to serve as cannon fodder to give Sasuke enough time to set up a killing blow. "I need to ask Kakashi-sensei to teach me some cool jutsu attack jutsu," Naruto thought. When the smoke cleared, instead of seeing a badly burned corpse, Sasuke and Naruto saw a large pile of burnt mud in the rough shape of a human. My, you two certainly work well together," Orochimaru's voice called out from all around them. "But that doesn't make you strong, it makes you weak." Orochimaru burst out of the ground between the two genin, grabbing Sasuke with one of his hands and Naruto by his tongue. When he yanked Naruto off the ground, he saw a brief glimpse of the seal. "So that's what you are. Well, this will take care of that." Using his free hand, Orochimaru produced 5 small purple flames at the end of his figures, Gogyu Fuin, 5-element seal. He thrust the purple flames into Naruto's abdomen, making him yell in pain. "And now for your gift." After dropping Naruto, Orochimaru turned his attention to Sasuke before extending a set of fangs and biting into Sasuke's upper shoulder. When he was finished, an ugly black bruise started to take a strange shape. With a negligent toss toward the slowly rising Sakura, Orochimaru stated, "I hope you survive the next 24 hours. I'd hate to see all this effort go to waste." "What now?" Sakura wondered as she saw Orochimaru sink into the earth.
That's all for now. If you enjoy this video, then please like, share and do comments.